Hey, and welcome to Bible 365 with Kathy Carter on day 87, which is on your calendar March 28th. So day 87, March 28th, our reading is Joshua 15:20 through 17. So if you are watching this at a different time, it does not matter. It makes no difference if you are in April, October, you're 2 years later, it doesn't matter. But if you are on the actual calendar, if you started on January 1st and you're moving along, trudging along with me every day, today should be March 17th for you. So today I have my big giant glasses on today. And I feel like my eyes look like they're monstrously huge in this, but we're trying them out. We're seeing how they go. So again, we are in Joshua. So if today is your first day looking at this video, you have never been with me before. I'm Kathy Carter, and I'm doing 365 days of reading the Bible using the 1 Year Chronological Bible reading plan. I'm going to say it slower. The 1 Year Chronological Bible reading plan. And you can find that online by its name online, which is a free downloadable reading plan that puts the Bible in historical or chronological order. And it's a great understanding of the story of the Bible, right? It's kind of connecting all of the pieces together. So for those of you who have never read your Bible before cover to cover, I think this is the greatest way to read it. For those of you who have read it before on multiple occasions and really have a great understanding of the Bible, I feel like this just sort of bridges a lot of gaps between things like, obviously why the Israelites did all the things that they did, why God chose the Israelites, who the next generation after that is, right? So like if you pick up the book of Ruth and you randomly read the book of Ruth, not that it's an amazing book and you can't get so many things out of it that actually happened at that time and now, but knowing how it fits in during the time of the judges makes it easier to understand historically what was happening at that time. So then why that book would be important, why that book would actually be part of the Bible, and then how it relates to us today. So I feel like it just adds like a nice little extra piece to why we're reading the Bible in the first place. What's the whole purpose? The whole reason is to understand God. And if we can't understand his people, I think it makes it a little bit harder to understand why he says some of the things that he says. Like, is it fine to have a whole bunch of wives? Because at some of these times they had a whole bunch of wives. Does that mean it's okay for me? Right? So I think it helps us understand those concepts a little bit better. So we're in the book of Joshua, and this little kind of chunk in the book of Joshua is killing me a little bit because, not really, of course, but because it is just, I don't want to even just say it's monotonous. This is where he's allotting all of the land to every tribe. And while it's fascinating information and it's really good information, I feel like it's not necessarily new information. And so I'm just struggling a little bit to get through it. So if you guys are the same, with that struggle to get through it, I continue to encourage you. Don't give up on it. Don't skip over it. Don't gloss over it. Read it in its entirety, just to be reminded of everything that God did for them, right? So there's a reason it was in there. And these were things that were read to the Israelites very regularly. And so they did have the knowledge and the understanding of this. So when we go to, let's say, the New Testament, and we hear and figure out who the Pharisees are, the Pharisees had all of this information. So they were living off of a lot of this information. So this is good information to have, if you're kind of, I don't even know how to say this city name, right? Like, so there's a lot of cities and towns and villages and, trying to find these family connections and find out about all these villages. So we're going to start from the beginning of today. Joshua is the one who took over for Moses. Moses was the one who took the Israelites out of Egypt, brought them into the edge of the land of milk and honey, which is the land of Canaan that is promised by God, that he promised over and over and over again through these generations. And Moses was not able to, and promised by God that he would not bring them into the promised land. But Joshua would. Joshua is the one that was with Moses all the time. And he is now the new leader of the Israelite people. And so at this point, Joshua, who was the leader of the Israelite people, Eleazar, who is Aaron's son, and he's currently the high priest. So remember, they have that tabernacle that they all go to God, right? They go in and they speak to God. And so this is the tent of meeting, tabernacle, the place where God comes and meets with them. They all come in and meet there. And Eleazar is the high priest, the one that goes into the Ark of the Covenant, which is where God is, right? And he speaks in between the two cherubim. It is where the 10 commandments are, and it is where the book of the law of Moses is. So Moses wrote that entire book, which is Deuteronomy, and he placed that inside the Ark of the Covenant. And so we're starting from there. Okay, so here we go. We are in Joshua 15:20 is where we start. So remember, we're 15:20 through 17. So the first verse here is 20, and it says, "This is the inheritance of the tribe of Judah according to its clans." One of the things that I don't, and I'm not sure why or why it matters, but one of the things I find interesting is I feel like we spend so much time on the tribe of Judah. So yesterday we spent a lot of time on Caleb and everything that Caleb got, because he's in the tribe of Judah, and because Caleb was the one who went in and felt like the Israelites could fight those people. So God promised him that he would live. And so we find out all this land that Caleb gets in the tribe of Judah and his daughter. But we also just saw a lot of the land that was given to the entire tribe. And now we continue to hear about all this land that is given to the tribe of Judah. And so I'm not really sure why. There's a lot of close attention paid to the tribe of Judah. They get a huge portion of land, if you can see it on the map, which I'm going to try and post the map. I'm going to connect it to the notes under here, or not the notes, into the comment section. So if you want to kind of take a look at the map and see, but Judah gets a huge portion of land all the way down, like sort of from the middle of Israel all the way down to the bottom edge. And so they get a lot of that. So anyway, this is the towns that they have been given. So it says the southernmost towns of the tribe of Judah in the Negev toward the boundary of Edom were, and then they list all of these tribes. And it was 29 towns and their villages. And then they got some in the western foothills. And then they got some in the hill country. And then they got some in the wilderness. So they're kind of hitting all around all these places that Judah gets a tribe. So this is what I found to be the most interesting. Really, the only verse that stuck out to me was that verse 63, Judah could not dislodge the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, the Jebusites live there with the people of Judah. It's the promise that was made all throughout the book of Genesis into the book of Leviticus, Numbers, was that they would get the land from the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. And so I find that it's interesting that there are still some Jebusites living there. And what we're going to find is not just the Jebusites are living there, that they can't get them out of the land. And so those Jebusites are still living there. So I don't know why they weren't removed. I don't know, because they were told to wipe out all the people. And so they went in, and there were towns where they destroyed everybody. They destroyed men, women, children, animals, right? Everything. They burned everything. And in here, it says that they were not able to get them out of there. So that's what we know. We know right now in the land of Judah, there will also be some Jebusites. All right. And then moving on to Joshua 16. This is now we're moving on to West Manasseh and Ephraim. So these are Joseph's sons. So if we go back to Egypt, nope, we go back to Genesis. Joseph was one of the 12 sons of Jacob, but the promise was passed down actually to his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And so those are the two that actually get tribes and they get land. But as we see, they kind of stay a little bit intermingled. Before they even got into the land, East Manasseh, which were the sons of Machir, were out on where the current Jordan is. So they were outside of Israel, what we would consider current day Israel, which again was the land of Canaan. But that's half. Now the other half is going to get land over here in the land of Canaan, and then Ephraim is going to get a nice small little area in the land of Canaan as well. So it says the allotment for Joseph, and so they're talking about Joseph because it's both of the sons of Joseph. The allotment for Joseph began at the Jordan, east of the springs of Jericho, and went up from there through the desert into the hill country of Bethel. It went on from Bethel, crossed over to the territory, and kind of went down and around. And I just wanted to note that Bethel we've seen before. Bethel we saw back in Genesis, and that was a place that we saw in the Old Testament, or, well, we saw in the book of Genesis that Abraham was at, that Jacob was at. So Jacob was in the land of Bethel. This is where I think Jacob's father-in-law chased him down to Bethel. So we saw he was in Bethel for a little bit. And then the other thing I wanted to note was in verse 10, it says, so because we moved down to verse 4, it says, Manasseh and Ephraim, the descendants of Joseph, received their inheritance. But then in verse 10, it says, they did not dislodge the Canaanites living in Gezer. To this day, the Canaanites live among the people of Ephraim, but are required to do forced labor. Now, we didn't see that about the Jebusites. I'm going to assume that that's possibly true because we see that in a different area. But the Canaanites were, I want to say, essentially slaves to the people. So I guess they drove out most of the Canaanites, but not all of the Canaanites, but they were stronger. And so they were required to do forced labor for them. So they were essentially their workers. I feel like forced labor always means slavery. They were forced to work for them. And so essentially, but it does not say slavery in here. All right. Okay, if we move on to chapter 17. Chapter 17, it says, this is continuing with the land given to Manasseh. So this was the allotment for the tribe of Manasseh. Manasseh as Joseph's firstborn. That is for Machir, Manasseh's firstborn, who was actually way back in Genesis. Machir was one of the ones that Jacob actually was still alive and around to see. This was the ancestor of the Gileadites, who had received Gilead and Bashan because of the Machirites were great soldiers. So they got this land because the Machirites were great soldiers. So, and this was, again, we're going way back from before. And then one of the families of Manasseh who got land were those, if you guys remember, I think it's back in Numbers, the Zelophehad's kids. So they were all daughters. And so if you remember, there were no sons. And so they needed land. And so they were promised land. And so they got an allotment of land here in West Manasseh. So, because if we go to verse 3, it says, Zelophehad, son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, only daughters, and they heard their names. And the Lord commanded Moses to give them an inheritance among their relatives. So Joshua gave them their inheritance along with the brothers of their father, according to the Lord's command. So it was 10 tracts of land besides Gilead and Bashan east of the Jordan. So this was still east of the Jordan. Now, west of the Jordan, which is where we are inside the land of Canaan in verse 7, the territory of Manasseh extended from Asher to Michmathah. This is another really big section. So if you're looking at a map, it is north of the Dead Sea and it's over towards the ocean. So it is more on the east side instead of over on the west side towards Jordan. And so they get this huge piece of land. And then it says in verse 12, yet the Manassites were not able to occupy these towns, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that region. So here we go again. We have more Canaanites that are still living there. However, when the Israelites grew stronger, they subjected the Canaanites to forced labor, but didn't drive them out completely. So here we go again with, we have these small isolated chunks of areas that still have the people who used to live in the area. They're still there. So again, they were not completely destroyed. They were not annihilated as a people group, as I thought they were, and I feel like as God told them they were supposed to be. So they're still there, and then they are just people that are working for the Israelites, which I feel like would create bad blood, but we'll certainly find out about that. So some of the Canaanites were left in there. All right, so I want to read verse 14. The people of Joseph said to Joshua, why have you given us only one allotment and one portion for an inheritance? Because they have a huge amount of people. And so Joshua said, then go clear out the land for yourselves. So if you're so big and you have so many people, there's this area over there. Take all those people out and go clear out that area. And then Joshua said, then the people of Joseph, so Manasseh and Ephraim's people, said, it's not enough for us. And they have filled the area. So the Canaanites are all over the area. But Joshua said to them, you are numerous and very powerful. You will have not only one allotment, but the hill country as well. Clear it, drive out the Canaanites. And then it says, have their chariots fitted with iron. And though they are strong, you can take them out. So again, he is continuing to let them know that you guys are responsible for taking out this land. That's actually where we're ending today. So I feel like we have not gotten very far. There was not a huge amount of reading today. So what we found so far is that Judah has gotten their huge tract of land, but they still have Jebusites in there. Um, and then we found that Manasseh and Ephraim have both gotten sets of land. And Manasseh said it's not enough, so they want it more. And again, they're a little bit north. So Judah is kind of this huge area down south, and they're sort of up in the north. And they said, it's not enough land for us. And Joshua has given them the freedom to go and take this land from those that are currently living in this land. He says they're able to do it and to go and do it. But again, they still have Canaanites living in their land. So that's where we've ended for today. Not a huge amount going on, still sort of in war in this area, even though it seems like there's a lot more peace than there was before. There's still sort of war in these small little tribal areas, but slowly but surely they're starting to the Israelites are starting to kind of invade the area and start to live there and put down roots and build up the land and everything. So we're finding they're here for a longer period of time, and they're starting to own the area, I guess we'll say. So that's where we end today. We're going to see tomorrow. I'm sure we're going to get some more of the tribes and see where they're going to start to live, and then we'll see who's still stuck in their land. Keep reading, and I'll see you next time.